What if there was a color no one else could see? A color that isn't in any book, has no name, and was never meant to be discovered. Mary was born into a world without color. Raised in a completely black and white room, she learned everything through books and monochrome screens. But the day she finally saw the real world, she discovered something science could never have predicted. This isn't just a philosophical theory. It was a real experiment, and its outcome was terrifying. Mary's room, also known as the knowledge argument, is a philosophical concept about a hypothetical woman named Mary who has never seen color. She has only ever existed in a black and white room. Mary studies the world through books and a monochromatic television screen. She reads about colors, but she does not experience them visually. Can the universe be fully understood in purely physical terms? The answer differs depending on whether one believes that we know fundamental truths about reality a priori, without experience, or a posteriori, with experience. In other words, will Mary learn anything new about color when she leaves the black and white room? It was a thought experiment. Nobody was supposed to actually do it. But in 2007, a group of researchers sought to answer that very question. And the experiment they conducted would have been condemned by ethics boards worldwide. But these were not ethical scientists, and this was no ethical organization. I would have opposed their actions back then. This was not why I joined the agency, but I was afraid. After all, they were willing to put an innocent baby inside a colorless prison cell, doomed to grow up in near solitary confinement with only a caretaker known as Nanny. What would they have done to a whistleblower? I don't know how they found the baby, and I don't want to know. Whether a parent willingly gave her up or one of the scientists intentionally bred her for the experiment, the result was the same. A baby named Mary, in honor of the philosophical concept that inspired this horrific experiment, was placed in a white, windowless, foam-padded cell. She was blindfolded whenever her caretaker entered to provide food, formula, and fresh clothing. Always the same black onesie, with mittens and socks covering her hands and feet. She also wore a facial covering, akin to a balaclava, which concealed her entire face. There was no mouth slit to prevent her from seeing the color of her lips, and she wore black contacts in her eyes. Likewise, Nanny always dressed identically when entering the room. Simply put, Mary's daily attire was barely more humane than a straitjacket and a bag over the head. There was no room for error. Mary was monitored 24/7. If she ever tried to peek at the color of her skin or eyes, she would receive a 100-volt shock from the collar around her neck. But the most terrifying part, Mary was well-trained, so well-trained that she never, in her 18 years of imprisonment, even attempted to look. She was such a willing prisoner, having never known anything else, that I believe she would have stayed in her room even if the door had been left open. At first, such extreme measures seemed unnecessary, given that every reflective surface had been removed. Even her television monitor was fitted with an anti-glare screen. But the scientists were paranoid that Mary might somehow, someday, catch a glimpse of her green eyes, that even seeing her pale, peach-colored skin would corrupt the experiment's results. Black and white. Those were the only shades Mary was ever allowed to see. And once Mary started walking and talking, Nanny stopped entering the room altogether. Fresh food and clothes were delivered through a horizontal slit in the steel door, and Mary was always instructed to blindfold herself before changing or using the bathroom, which consisted of a white porcelain toilet and a black shower head fixed to the foam wall. Her entire world was a box, stretching no more than 4 meters in any direction. I wanted to save her so many times, wanted to leave that horrid place behind. But I was a coward. Besides, we wouldn't have made it far. There is no escaping these people. And the agency isn't even the worst horror in this story. On Mary's 18th birthday, Dr. Robson delivered an exciting message over the speaker. "Happy birthday, Mary," he said, in a monotone devoid of emotion. "Thank you," the girl replied meekly. "Will there be chocolate cake this year? I didn't like the lemon last year, you see." "Today we'll be celebrating in a different way, Mary," Robson replied. "Do you know your age?" "I'm 18, she croaked. "Does that mean—" "Yes, Mary," Dr. Robson said. "Today you leave the room." "I'll see. Color?" she asked almost innocently. Any sane, well-developed human from the outside world would have simply been relieved to be free. But Mary had no concept of freedom, no concept of a prison. She had no idea that her childhood had been abnormal, worse than abnormal, inhuman. To keep Mary compliant, her education had been strict, with books that deliberately omitted any dangerous ideas. The result? A girl who was eager, not to escape, but simply to see color. "Yes, Mary, you will see color. Nanny is on her way to get you," Dr. Robson said. We watched the live footage through the operational room's monitors. Nanny unlocked the heavy door, and we held our breath as she helped Mary remove her black headgear. I heard Mary giggling giddily, unnervingly as the bag was lifted from her head and the contacts were taken from her eyes. Then, as her first experience with color other than black or white, Nanny removed her black outfit, revealing a striking red dress underneath. Mary gasped, a sharp intake of breath as if she had momentarily stopped breathing. "What are you experiencing?" Dr. Robson asked. "Is it new? Does it feel—" "I knew it," Mary whispered, her voice raw. Then her giggling picked up again, unsettling Nanny. "This is why you did the experiment, isn't it? Does this feel like a new experience, Mary?" Robson pressed impatiently. Mary lifted her teary eyes to the camera. "Yes, but I've been waiting for it." "Yes, I know, Mary," Robson groaned. "But so have I. Tell me about it. Tell me about the red. How does it feel?" "I'm not talking about the red," Mary interjected. She pointed at Nanny's dress with an accusatory finger, her voice giddy. "I'm talking about that." Nanny flinched, stepping back. "What other color?" Robson asked, confused. "It's just red, Mary." Mary's eyes gleamed. "Number the color you never described in the books." "There are millions of color variations, Mary," Robson sighed. "Perhaps you—" "No, doctor," she interrupted, trembling. "I understand shades. This is not a shade. It's—" She stopped, eyes widening. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm sorry." Nanny frowned. "That's okay, Mary. I know you didn't mean to—" "Not you," Mary hissed, staring into Nanny's face. I'm sorry I saw you." Nanny paled. "Dr. Robson, I'd like to leave." She turned to go, but then she froze. A tremor ran through her body, a violent shudder. And then she exploded. Blood, flesh, shards of red fabric, screams erupted. Scientists fled. But I saw Mary clawing out her own eyes. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I wasn't supposed to see it." I ran. And now, hours later, I sit here trembling. Because only Mary saw it. The color, the one we weren't meant to see.